I'm Alice, 32 years old, and I'm standing in the doorway of my childhood home watching my family decorate for my brother's surprise party on my birthday. In my hand is a small chocolate cupcake I bought myself from the grocery store this morning, a single candle already blown out in my car. My mother is on a ladder hanging a massive banner that reads, "Happy 29th birthday, James," while my father tests the expensive sound system they rented for the occasion. My sister Rachel arranges silver platters of catered food that must have cost thousands of dollars. Not one person has looked at me since I walked in 5 minutes ago. This is the 15th year in a row they've forgotten my birthday, and something inside me finally snaps. Before we dive into the story, I want to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's felt invisible in your own family? Please hit that like button if you've ever been overlooked, and don't forget to subscribe because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. What would you do if your family deliberately forgot your special day year after year? Let's find out what happened when I finally decided enough was enough. The pattern started when I turned 17, though I didn't recognize it as deliberate back then. That year, my parents claimed they were too busy planning James's college acceptance celebration to remember my birthday fell on the same weekend. I understood, or at least I told myself I did. James had gotten into Yale, and that was a big deal. My birthday could wait. Except it never stopped waiting. The following year, my 18th birthday, the age when most kids get special celebrations for becoming adults, came and went without a word. James was home from college for spring break, and suddenly our house was full of his friends, parties every night, expensive dinners out that I wasn't invited to because the reservation was only for 5. I spent that birthday at the library, telling myself I was being mature by not making a fuss. By the time I turned 21, the legal drinking age, the milestone everyone celebrates, I had learned not to expect anything. That year was particularly cruel. My mother had actually asked me a week before what kind of cake I liked, and for one brief moment, I felt hope flutter in my chest. But my birthday came, and instead of cake, I found my family preparing for James's graduation party scheduled for the following month. When I quietly mentioned it was my birthday at dinner, my mother looked at me blankly and said, "Oh, honey, we're not really birthday people. You know that." The lie was so breathtaking, I actually laughed. Not birthday people? I had photos on my phone of James's elaborate 19th birthday party, where they'd rented out an entire restaurant. His 20th had been a surprise trip to Vegas with his friends, all expenses paid by our parents. His 21st had been a Caribbean cruise. But sure, we weren't birthday people. My 25th birthday was when I first tried to advocate for myself. I called my mother a month in advance. "Mom, my birthday is coming up and I'd really like to do something with the family." Nothing big, just dinner together. She sounded distracted on the phone, but she agreed. The day arrived and I dressed carefully, did my makeup, waited in the living room. Hours passed. Finally, I checked Facebook and saw the truth in tagged photos. My entire family was at a charity gala for James's new business venture, dressed in formal where I hadn't even known they'd bought. The caption on my mother's post read, "So proud of our son. The future is bright." Posted at 7:47 p.m. on my birthday. Each year after that, the excuses evolved, but the neglect remained constant. "You're so independent, Alice. We thought you didn't care about these things. At your age, birthdays are just another day. We're saving money this year. Things are tight." The last one was particularly insulting since I'd seen the credit card statement left carelessly on the counter showing they'd spent $8,000 on James's 27th birthday weekend in Napa Valley. I tried different approaches over the years. Subtle hints dropped weeks in advance. Direct conversations where I explicitly stated I'd like to celebrate. One year, I even tried planning my own party and inviting them. They all had last-minute emergencies that prevented them from attending. James had important client dinner. My parents had to visit a sick friend who miraculously recovered the next day. Rachel had a migraine that cleared up in time for her to post Instagram stories from a concert that same night. The gaslighting was perhaps worse than the neglect itself. When I would bring up the disparity in treatment, my family would unite in their denial. "You're imagining things. We treat all our children equally. Why do you always have to compare yourself to James? This jealousy is really unattractive, Alice. They'd make me feel crazy, selfish, petty for wanting just one day of recognition when James got hundreds. Last year, my 31st birthday, I decided to test them one final time. I said nothing about my birthday approaching. Made no hints, no requests. I wanted to see if anyone would remember on their own. The day came and went with my mother calling to ask if I could pick up James's dry cleaning because he was busy with work. I sat in my car outside the dry cleaners, holding his freshly pressed suits, and promised myself this would be the last year I let them hurt me. Now here I am, watching them prepare yet another elaborate celebration for James on my birthday. 15 years of this. 15 years of being invisible in my own family. 15 years of believing their lies that I was too sensitive, too demanding, too jealous. The thing is, I discovered something 2 weeks ago that changed everything. They hadn't forgotten. They'd never forgotten. And today, on my 32nd birthday, everything was about to change. 2 weeks ago, I'd come home early from work with a migraine. The house was quiet, which was unusual for a Thursday afternoon. My father's laptop was open on the kitchen counter, the screen still bright with an active conversation. I went to close it, not wanting to invade his privacy, when I saw my name in the chat window. Curiosity won over courtesy, and what I found shattered the last pieces of my heart that still believed my family's neglect was accidental. It was their family group chat, the one they told me didn't exist, when I'd asked why I never received invites to family dinners until the last minute. The conversation thread went back years, but what I saw from the past few weeks was enough. They'd been meticulously planning James's party for over a month, coordinating caterers, decorations, guest lists, even hiring a professional photographer. But what stopped my breath were the messages about me. Alice's birthday is coming up again. My mother had written 3 weeks ago. Same plan as always? My father had responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Rachel had chimed in. God, remember last year when she got all weepy about it? So embarrassing. I bet she tries to make it about her again. James's response was the cruelest. Just act surprised if she brings it up. You know how she gets. Desperate for attention as always. My hands shook as I scrolled further back. Year after year of coordinated neglect laid out in digital black and white. They'd joke about my dramatics when I mentioned my birthday. Share strategies for deflecting my requests. My mother's message from 3 years ago still burns in my memory. If she asks about doing something, everyone say you're busy. We need to save money for James's promotion party anyway. She makes enough money to buy her own cake if it matters that much to her. But it got worse. I found discussions about family finances that made my blood run cold. They drained my college fund, the one my grandmother had left specifically for me, to invest in James's business ventures. 3 failed startups, each funded by money that should have been mine. When I'd asked about the fund years ago for graduate school, they told me it had been lost in bad investments. Technically true, I suppose, since James's businesses were certainly bad investments. There were receipts in the chat. Receipts for parties, trips, gifts, all for James, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. During the same period, they told me they couldn't help with my student loans because money was tight. I'd worked 3 jobs through college, lived on ramen and hope, while they spent my inheritance on James's pipe dreams. The extended family deception was perhaps the most calculated cruelty. They told aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents that I was difficult about birthdays and preferred not to celebrate. One message from my mother to my aunt read, Alice gets upset if people make a fuss over her birthday. She's very private about it. Best not to mention it if you see her. No wonder my extended family never called or sent cards. They thought they were respecting my wishes. I found photos they'd shared in the chat, mocking me behind my back. A picture of me at Christmas looking sad, captioned by Rachel, Alice pouting because it's not all about her again. Another of me at James's graduation party, with Look Who's Jealous written underneath by James himself. Years of small cruelties documented and celebrated among them. The business about the will was there too. My father had written extensively about his plans to leave everything to James and Rachel, with a small token amount for me, to avoid contestation. He justified it by saying I was successful on my own and didn't need family money, conveniently forgetting they'd already stolen my inheritance to fund James's failures. I sat at that kitchen counter for 3 hours, screenshotting everything. Messages, photos, receipts, plans, the whole sick tapestry of their deliberate campaign to erase me from the family while keeping me around as an audience for James's inflated success. By the time I heard my mother's car in the driveway, I had uploaded everything to multiple cloud servers and emailed copies to myself. I closed the laptop and retreated to my room, my mind reeling with the magnitude of their betrayal. The next 2 weeks were agony. I went to work, came home, interacted with my family, all while knowing the truth. They smiled at me over dinner, asked about my day, acted like loving family members while planning to twist the knife deeper on my birthday. I watched my mother call relatives to invite them to James's party, telling them it was a surprise, winking at me like I wasn't on the joke. I was just not the way she thought. Yesterday, I overheard the final planning call. The party would cost $15,000. $15,000. The exact amount I'd begged them to loan me for a down payment on a condo 5 years ago, which they'd refused, claiming poverty. I listened to my mother gush about the champagne fountain, the live band, the custom cake from the city's most exclusive bakery. All for James. All on my birthday. All while they continued their 15-year charade of forgetting I existed. So here I stand in the doorway, watching them prepare for his party, my pathetic store-bought cupcake in hand. They still haven't noticed me, but they will. Oh, they will. Because what they don't know is that I've spent the last 2 weeks preparing my own surprise. Today isn't just my 32nd birthday. It's the day the forgotten daughter finally makes herself impossible to ignore. I stepped fully into the kitchen, setting my sad little cupcake on the counter with deliberate precision. The soft thud made my mother glance over from where she was arranging white roses in crystal vases. For a moment, her eyes flickered with something that might have been recognition, but then her face smoothed into practiced indifference.
Oh, Alice.
Good, you're here. Can you help Rachel with the appetizers? The caterers delivered them in the wrong containers. She turned back to her flowers without waiting for a response, dismissing me as efficiently as she'd done for 15 years. Mom, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. Do you know what today is? She didn't look up. Saturday? Alice, I really don't have time for games right now. Your brother's guests will be arriving in 3 hours, and nothing is ready. Her tone was sharp, impatient, the voice she used when I was interrupting something important, which, in her world, was anything involving James. It's my birthday, I said simply. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. I watched her hands still on the rose stems for just a moment before resuming their work. Is it? Well, happy birthday, dear. Now about those appetizers. She waved vaguely toward the dining room where Rachel was cursing at several aluminum containers. That's it? Happy birthday. I moved closer, forcing myself into her line of sight. You're throwing a $15,000 party for James on my birthday, and all I get is an absent-minded happy birthday? My mother's face transformed then, the mask of indifference replaced by irritation. Alice, for God's sake. You're 32 years old, not 12. Do you really need mommy to bake you a cake and sing songs? This is exactly the kind of behavior that exhausts everyone. Your brother has closed a major business deal, and we're celebrating his success. Not everything is about you. When has anything ever been about me? The question burst out before I could stop it. Years of suppressed hurt bleeding into my voice. Name one birthday, just one, where you've remembered without being reminded. Name one celebration that was mine. My father walked in then, carrying boxes of champagne glasses. He took in the scene and his jaw tightened. What's going on here? Your daughter is having another one of her episodes, my mother said, returning to her flowers. Apparently, we're terrible parents because we're celebrating James's success. It's my birthday, I repeated, looking at my father. My birthday, Dad. And you're throwing James a party, like you have for the last 15 years. My father set down the boxes with unnecessary force. Alice, this victim complex of yours is getting old. We treat all our children equally. If you feel overlooked, maybe you should examine why that might be. Have you accomplished anything worth celebrating lately? Closed any million-dollar deals? Started any successful businesses? The cruelty of it was breathtaking, especially since I knew they'd sabotaged every opportunity I'd had by draining my college fund. But I pushed forward. I was promoted to regional manager last month. I told you at dinner. You said congratulations and then spent 20 minutes talking about James's new car. See, we acknowledged it, he said, as if that settled everything. Alice, you need to grow up and stop comparing yourself to your brother. This jealousy is poisoning you. Rachel appeared in the doorway, taking in the confrontation with obvious delight. Oh, great. Is Alice crying about her birthday again? God, this is so predictable. Every year with the drama. I'm not being dramatic, I said, pulling out my phone.
I am stating facts.
And I have proof that this isn't forgetfulness or treating us equally. You've been deliberately planning to ignore my birthday for years. I showed them the screenshots on my phone, the group chat messages, the coordinated neglect, the jokes at my expense. For a moment, silence filled the kitchen. Then my mother laughed, actually laughed. You went through your father's private messages? How dare you violate our privacy like that? This is exactly the kind of unstable behavior we've been concerned about. She was already rewriting the narrative, making me the villain for discovering their cruelty. You stole my college fund, I said, scrolling to those messages. Grandma left that money for my education, and you gave it to James for his failed businesses. That money was for the family, my father said coldly. James's success would benefit everyone. Your selfishness is showing again, Alice. What success? I challenged. Every business he started has failed. You've poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into his ego projects while telling me you couldn't afford to help with my student loans. James himself walked in then, early for his own surprise party, though I suspected he'd been listening from the hallway. His smirk told me everything I needed to know. Still crying about birthdays, Alice? God, how pathetic can you get? As pathetic as a 29-year-old man who needs mommy and daddy to fund his lifestyle? I shot back. His face darkened. At least I'm trying to build something. What have you done? Middle management at some corporate drone factory? No wonder they don't celebrate you. There's nothing to celebrate. I succeeded despite you all, I said, my voice growing stronger. Despite having my college fund stolen, despite working multiple jobs to pay for school, despite 15 years of being told I'm worth less than nothing, I built my career alone, which is more than you can say. After everything we've done for you, my mother interrupted, her voice dripping with manufactured hurt. The roof over your head, the food in your mouth, and this is how you repay us? With accusations and jealousy. You mean the bare minimum legal requirement of parenting? I asked. Should I be grateful you didn't let me starve? If you keep this up, my father said quietly, menacingly, you'll be out of the will entirely. Is that what you want? To throw away your future over a birthday party? According to your messages, I'm already essentially out of it, I replied. A token amount to avoid contestation, right? The silence that followed was deafening. They hadn't expected me to know that. My mother recovered first, switching to her favorite manipulation tactic.
Tears.
I can't believe you'd accuse us of such horrible things, she said, her voice wavering. We've done our best with you, Alice. If you feel unloved, maybe it's because you make yourself so difficult to love. Always demanding, always comparing, never satisfied. I asked for one birthday dinner in 15 years, I said quietly. That's all. One family dinner to acknowledge I exist. And you couldn't even give me that. Because it's never just dinner with you, Rachel chimed in. It's emotional manipulation. Poor me. Nobody loves me. Why does James get everything? It's exhausting. You know what's exhausting? I countered. Watching her family pour everything into one child while pretending the other doesn't exist. Seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on parties and trips and failed businesses while being told there's no money to help with textbooks. Being gaslit for 15 years into believing I'm selfish for wanting basic recognition. Get out, my father said suddenly. If you're so miserable in this family, leave. Come back when you're ready to apologize for this display. I looked around at their faces. My mother's false tears, my father's cold anger, Rachel's sneering satisfaction, James's smug confidence. They'd united against me, as they always did. The screenshots, the evidence, none of it mattered. They'd rewrite history as they always had, making me the ungrateful daughter, the jealous sister, the problem to be solved by erasure. Fine, I said, picking up my pathetic cupcake. But you might want to check your guest list for tonight. Some unexpected people might show up. Is that a threat? James stepped forward, trying to intimidate me with his size. No, I said, meeting his eyes steadily. It's a promise. Enjoy your party, James. It'll be one to remember. I walked out of my childhood home, leaving them to their preparations. They thought they'd won, as they always did. The forgotten daughter put back in her place, reminded of her worthlessness, sent away to lick her wounds in private. What they didn't know was that I'd spent 2 weeks planning something special for James's party. Something that would finally balance the scales after 15 years of deliberate cruelty. My phone buzzed with texts as I got in my car. My mother. Your behavior today was unacceptable. Don't come back until you're ready to apologize. My father. You're officially on notice regarding the will. Rachel. Drama queen as always. James. Thanks for the entertainment. Don't forget to pick up my dry cleaning Monday. I deleted them all without responding. They'd hear from me again soon enough. But not in the way they expected. The forgotten daughter was done begging for scraps. Tonight, at James's elaborate party, they'd finally understand the cost of their cruelty. The party they'd spent months planning, the thousands of dollars invested, the important guests invited, it would all come crashing down. And I'd watch it burn with the same indifference they'd show me for 15 years. I drove to my apartment in a daze of hurt and fury, my hands steady on the wheel even as my mind raced through possibilities. By the time I reached my building, the tears had dried and something harder had crystallized in their place. 15 years of being the forgotten daughter, the family ghost, the inconvenient reminder that not all children were James. It ended tonight. My laptop was already open on my dining table, surrounded by the evidence I'd been gathering since discovering the family group chat. Financial documents, emails, business records, all painting a picture my family thought they'd hidden forever. The beautiful thing about being ignored for so long is that people forget you're smart. They forget you pay attention. They forget that the quiet daughter might be documenting everything. James's business dealings came first. While researching his latest venture, the one my parents were celebrating tonight, I discovered some interesting facts. His company, Meridian Solutions, was built on stolen code from his previous employer. I had the emails where he bragged about it to a friend, thinking he was clever. The friend, Marcus Chun, had kept those emails. Marcus, who'd been fired when James blamed him for a failed project, was very interested in sharing them with the right people. I opened my contact list and found Derek Morrison, James's biggest investor. The man who'd pumped $2 million into Meridian Solutions based on James's polished lies and my parents' guarantee. Derek didn't know about the stolen code. He also didn't know that James had been siphoning funds to a personal account in the Caymans. But he would. Tonight. At the party. My next call was to Sandra Willis at Channel 7 News. Sandra and I had met at a Women in Business conference 2 years ago. She'd given me her card, mentioning she was always interested in stories about corporate fraud and family dynamics. I'd kept that card, never thinking I'd use it. But tonight's party would have a very special guest list, and Sandra was about to get an exclusive. The trust fund situation required more finesse. My grandmother had set it up specifically for my education, with clear stipulations. My parents had violated those terms when they drained it for James. I'd found the original documents in a safety deposit box my grandmother had given me access to before she died. She'd never trusted my parents completely. Smart woman. I called Thomas Bradley, the estate lawyer whose name was on the trust documents. He was semi-retired but still sharp. When I explained the situation and emailed him the evidence, his voice went cold. Your parents could face serious legal consequences for this, Alice. Breach of fiduciary duty at minimum. Are you prepared for that? I've been preparing for 15 years, I told him. Can you make it to a party tonight? The extended family required a different approach. They'd been lied to for years, told I was difficult, antisocial, that I preferred to be excluded. I crafted individual emails to each aunt, uncle, and cousin, attaching screenshots of the group chat messages where my family joked about deceiving them, where my mother specifically instructed them to ignore my birthdays, where they laughed about how easily manipulated the extended family was. My Aunt Catherine called within minutes of receiving her email. Alice, sweetheart, is this real? They told us you didn't want us to acknowledge your birthdays. I've felt horrible for years, wanting to reach out but respecting what I thought were your wishes. It's real, Aunt Kathy. And there's more. Will you be at James's party tonight? Wild horses couldn't keep me away now, she said grimly. The house situation was trickier, but not impossible. My parents had taken out massive loans to fund James's ventures, putting their home as collateral. They were already behind on payments, though they'd hidden it well. I had a friend in real estate who specialized in distressed properties. Maria Gonzalez was very interested in the information I provided. If they're as far behind as these documents suggest, Maria said, reviewing what I'd sent, the bank will move to foreclose soon. I could make an offer before it goes to auction. Fair market value, all above board. Do it, I said. And Maria? Time it for tonight if you can. The coup de grace was James's personal life. While diving through his business emails, I'd stumbled onto a different kind of correspondence. James was having an affair with Patricia Coleman, wife of his business partner Richard Coleman. The emails were explicit, including photos that left nothing to the imagination. Richard Coleman was also invited to tonight's party. He deserved to know what kind of man he was in business with. I created a delayed email, scheduled to arrive at precisely 8 p.m., when I knew the party would be in full swing. It would go to Richard, but also to Patricia, ensuring neither could deny or cover it up. The subject line was simple: you should know the truth about James and Patricia. By 5 o'clock, everything was in place. Derek Morrison confirmed he'd attend to discuss the investment. Sandra Willis had her cameraman ready, posing as a +1 for a legitimate guest. Thomas Bradley was prepared with cease and desist letters regarding the trust fund. The extended family group chat I'd created was buzzing with fury as relatives realized they'd been manipulated for years. Maria had the foreclosure documents ready to present. The email to Richard Coleman was locked and loaded. I dressed carefully for the evening. Not in the simple, understated clothes I usually wore to family events, trying not to draw attention or invite criticism. Tonight, I wore the red designer dress I'd bought myself for my 30th birthday, the one I'd never had occasion to wear. Diamond earrings sparkled at my ears, a gift to myself for my last promotion. My hair was professionally styled, my makeup flawless. If I was going to watch my family's world burn, I'd look spectacular doing it. My phone rang as I was applying lipstick. My mother, probably wondering if I'd picked up something they'd forgotten for the party. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Alice, I hope you've calmed down from your tantrum earlier. If you're thinking of causing trouble tonight, I'd reconsider. You have no idea how much you stand to lose if you continue this behavior. James's success tonight could benefit the whole family, including you, if you'd just stop being so selfish. Consider this your last warning. I deleted the message and blocked her number. Then I blocked my father, Rachel, and James too. The time for their words was over. Tonight was about consequences 15 years in the making. They'd forgotten my birthday, dismissed my achievements, stolen my inheritance, mocked my pain, and gaslit me into believing I deserved it all. They created a family narrative where I was the problem, the difficult one, the forgotten daughter who should be grateful for scraps. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd been so busy celebrating James, so confident in their cruelty, that they'd never considered I might be documenting everything. They'd never imagined that the quiet, overlooked daughter was building a case against them. They'd certainly never thought that one day, at the height of their golden child's triumph, I'd burn it all down with the same calculated indifference they'd shown me. I picked up my keys and the small gift bag I'd prepared for James. Inside was a birthday card, the cheap kind from the dollar store. I'd written only one line inside. Happy birthday. Love, your forgotten sister. I'd drop it on the gift table on my way in, a final touch of irony for the evening. The drive back to my childhood home was peaceful. No anxiety, no second thoughts, just the calm that comes with knowing justice is finally at hand. They'd taken 15 birthdays from me. 15 years of making me invisible, worthless, forgotten. Tonight, on my 32nd birthday, I'd give myself the only gift that mattered. The truth, served cold at the party they'd spent months planning. As I pulled into the familiar driveway, now lined with luxury cars and catering vans, I smiled. They thought they'd dismiss me this afternoon, set me away to nurse my wounds in private. But the forgotten daughter was done being invisible. Tonight, everyone would see exactly who the real Alice was and what happened when you push someone too far for too long. The party of the year was about to become unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. I arrived at precisely 7:30 when the party was reaching its crescendo. The house blazed with light, elegant music floating through the open windows. Guests mingled on the lawn with champagne flutes, admiring the professional decorations that had transformed my childhood home into something from a magazine. The banner reading, "Congratulations, James," stretched across the entrance, gold letters sparkling in the evening light. I walked through the front door like I belonged there, which technically I did. The cheap birthday card for James went onto the gift table, lost among the expensive presents. Several relatives noticed me and did double takes at my appearance. I'd never dressed like this for family events before. Alice. My cousin Mark approached, his face uncertain. "We got your email. Is everything, are you okay?" "I'm wonderful," I said, accepting a champagne glass from a passing waiter. "Enjoying my birthday." His face went through several expressions before settling on anger directed at the right target. "They're still doing this? On your actual birthday?" "For the last time," I assured him, patting his arm before moving deeper into the party. The house was packed with James's colleagues, my parents' society friends, and extended family. I spotted Derek Morrison by the bar, checking his phone with increasing concern. My timing was perfect. He'd just received the detailed email about James's embezzlement and the stolen code, complete with documentation. His face was turning an interesting shade of purple. I circulated through the crowd, playing the gracious daughter, making small talk, complimenting the decorations. My mother spotted me near the kitchen and hurried over, her face a mask of false concern mixed with real fury. "Alice, what are you wearing? You look like you're trying to upstage your brother." She kept her voice low, mindful of guests nearby. "And why are you here? I thought we made it clear you needed to apologize first." "It's my birthday outfit," I said pleasantly. 32 years old today. Thought I should dress for the occasion. Her jaw tightened. "Don't you dare cause a scene. I'm warning you." "Warning noted," I said, raising my glass in a mock toast before walking away. At 7:45, Thomas Bradley arrived, briefcase in hand. He found my parents near the grand staircase, where they were holding court with their closest friends. I watched from across the room as he handed them an envelope. My father's face went white as he read its contents. Cease and desist regarding the misappropriated trust fund, with a demand for full accounting and restitution. By 7:50, the extended family contingent had formed what looked like a war council in the corner of the living room. Aunt Catherine was showing others the screenshots on her phone. The temperature in their corner was decidedly frosty as they stared at my parents with barely concealed disgust. At 7:55, Sandra Willis arrived with her date, who happened to be carrying a very professional camera bag. They blended seamlessly into the crowd, Sandra's press credentials hidden beneath her elegant jacket. She caught my eye across the room and nodded. The story of the night was about to unfold. 8 o'clock arrived with the chime of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Multiple phones buzzed simultaneously. Richard Coleman, standing near the champagne fountain with his wife Patricia, pulled out his device. I watched his face transform as he read the email about his wife's affair with James. The attached photos left no room for denial or misinterpretation. The champagne flute fell from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound drew attention, conversations faltering as guests turned to look. Patricia glanced at her own phone and went pale, her hand flying to her throat. Richard's voice cut through the sudden quiet like a blade. "You lying, cheating bastard." He lunged toward James, who was standing near the fireplace accepting congratulations from colleagues who hadn't yet checked their own emails about the stolen code and embezzlement. Security guards my parents had hired for the event intervened, but the damage was done. Richard was screaming about the affair, Patricia was crying and trying to explain, and James was stammering denials that no one believed. Sandra's cameraman was discreetly filming everything. Derek Morrison chose that moment to stride forward, his own fury barely contained. "James, we need to talk.
Now.
About the $2 million that seems to be missing from Meridian's accounts. And about the proprietary code from Technova that forms the backbone of your platform." "I don't know what you're talking about." James tried to maintain his composure, but sweat was beading on his forehead. "Don't lie to me." Derek's voice boomed through the room. "I have the emails. The transfer records. The proof that you're nothing but a common thief dressed up in a suit your parents bought." The room erupted. Business partners were pulling out phones, checking emails, discovering the truth about their golden boy. Former colleagues recognized the stolen code documentation. Investors realized they'd been duped. The carefully constructed image of James the successful entrepreneur crumbled in real time. My father tried to restore order. "Everyone, please, there's been a misunderstanding. Let's discuss this calmly." "Misunderstanding?" Aunt Catherine's voice rang out. "Like the 15 years of misunderstanding where you told us Alice didn't want birthday wishes? Where you lied to your own family to exclude your daughter?" The extended family moved forward as a unit, years of suppressed guilt turning to righteous anger. They'd been manipulated, used as unwitting accomplices in my erasure. Uncle Robert was showing others the group chat screenshots. Cousins were comparing stories of being told to ignore me. The family facade was cracking along every seam. My mother tried her tears again. "This is all a terrible mistake. We love all our children equally." "Equally?" I stepped forward then, my voice carrying clearly through the chaos. "Is that why you spent my college fund on James's failed businesses? Why you threw him parties worth tens of thousands while telling me you couldn't afford a birthday dinner?" All eyes turned to me, the forgotten daughter in the red dress, standing in the middle of their ruined celebration. Sandra's cameraman pivoted smoothly, capturing every moment. "Alice is having difficulties," my mother said desperately. "She's always been jealous of her brother's success." "What success?" Derek Morrison interjected. "The company built on stolen code? The embezzled funds? The trail of failed ventures funded by other people's money?" The doorbell rang, cutting through the noise. My father answered it, probably hoping for a distraction. Instead, he found Maria Gonzalez with a briefcase and a professional smile. "Mr. Davidson? I'm here regarding the foreclosure notice on this property. Given your default on the loans taken against this house, the bank has initiated proceedings. I'm prepared to make a cash offer to help you avoid the embarrassment of public auction." My father's face went from white to red to purple in seconds. "Foreclosure? This is our home." "Not according to the bank," Maria said calmly. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately? Though given the guests here, word will likely spread regardless." The party was in full meltdown. James was backed against a wall by furious investors. Patricia was fleeing to the garden, Richard's shouts following her. The extended family was confronting my parents with 15 years of lies. Business associates were on phones with lawyers. Sandra Willis was getting the story of her career. My sister Rachel tried one last attack, stumbling toward me with wine-flushed cheeks. You did this. You ruined everything because you couldn't stand James being successful. You're pathetic. No, I said calmly. I revealed everything. There's a difference. I didn't steal money. I didn't lie to family. I didn't build a business on theft and fraud. I just stopped letting you all pretend. We gave you everything. My mother shrieked, abandoning all pretense of composure. And you destroy us over birthday parties? You gave me nothing, I corrected. Less than nothing. You actively stole from me, lied about me, tried to erase me. And yes, you did it while throwing James elaborate parties on my birthday. 15 years of calculated cruelty. Did you think there'd never be consequences? James finally found his voice, pushing past the investors crowding him.
You'll pay for this, Alice.
I'll sue you for defamation, for destroying my business. With what money? I asked. Your accounts are frozen pending investigation. Your investors are pulling out. Your business partner knows you're sleeping with his wife. Your code theft is documented. You're done, James. The golden child is finally exposed as pyrite. Get out. My father roared. Get out of this house. Gladly, I said. But you might want to start packing too. Maria's offer is the best you'll get before the bank takes everything. I moved toward the door, guests parting before me like water. At the threshold, I turned back one last time. The perfect party was in ruins. Decorations drooped as guests fled. The champagne fountain had been knocked over in the chaos. James's celebration cake remained uncut on its crystal stand, a monument to hubris. Oh, I almost forgot, I called out. Happy birthday to me. 32 years old, and finally free of all of you. I walked out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the wreckage of their carefully constructed lies. Behind me, I could hear Sandra Willis beginning her on-camera report. What was meant to be a celebration turned into a spectacular downfall tonight, as family secrets and corporate fraud collided in dramatic fashion. My phone was already buzzing with messages from extended family, apologizing for years of unintentional neglect, promising to make amends. Messages from former colleagues of James offering support and corroboration. Messages from friends who'd seen Sandra's live social media updates and couldn't believe what was happening. I ignored them all. Tonight wasn't about gaining a new family or building new relationships. It was about ending the toxic cycle that had defined 32 years of my life. The forgotten daughter had finally been seen, heard, acknowledged. Not with love or care, but with the only currency my family understood: consequences. As I drove away from my childhood home for the last time, I smiled. They'd given James everything and me nothing, thinking that made him strong and me weak. But they'd forgotten something crucial. When you have nothing left to lose, you have everything to gain. And when you've been invisible for 15 years, you learn to see everything. Happy birthday to me, indeed. 2 hours into the chaos, when the party had devolved into screaming matches and fleeing guests, I received a text from Sandra Willis. You need to see this. Your brother is about to make a statement. I was sitting in my favorite wine bar downtown, a place my family didn't even know existed because they'd never bothered to learn anything about my life. I pulled up the live stream on my phone, watching as James stood on the front steps of our childhood home, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. His tie was askew, his perfect hair mussed from Richard Coleman's attempted assault, but he was attempting to project confidence to the remaining guests and cameras. I want to address the false allegations made tonight, he began, his voice carrying that particular tone of wounded righteousness he'd perfected over years of manipulation. My sister, Alice, has orchestrated this attack out of jealousy and mental instability. She's always resented my success, and tonight she's proven how far she'll go to destroy our family. I sipped my wine, almost admiring his audacity. Even now, with evidence of his crimes scattered across the internet, he was trying to flip the narrative. But I'd prepared for this too. My phone was already in my hand. One click, and another wave of truth would wash away his lies. The nuclear option I'd held in reserve, hoping I wouldn't need it. But James had just made the choice for me. The live stream I started was simple. Me, sitting in the wine bar, looking directly at the camera. Since my brother wants to discuss truth and lies, let's have some real transparency. I held up a folder I'd brought with me. These are the receipts for every birthday party my family threw for James over the last 15 years. Total cost, $347,000. And here, I pulled out a single sheet, is every birthday acknowledgement I received. One card, when I turned 23, signed only by my mother and clearly purchased by her assistant because she spelled my middle name wrong. The viewer count was climbing rapidly. Sandra had shared the stream, and it was spreading across social media like wildfire. But let's talk about success, since James loves that word. I pulled out more documents. I graduated summa cum laude while working 3 jobs because my college fund mysteriously disappeared. I have my diploma here. I earned my MBA at night school, paid for entirely by myself. Here's that diploma too. I was promoted to regional manager last year, youngest in company history. Here's the announcement. I set the papers aside. James is right about one thing. I was invisible in my family, but that invisibility let me see everything. Like this. I played an audio recording on my phone, holding it up to the camera. It was from 5 years ago, a conversation I'd recorded after being hurt one too many times. My mother's voice rang out clearly. James deserves everything we give him. Alice is just there. She doesn't have his spark, his potential. Why waste resources on mediocrity? My father's response was equally damning. At least she's quiet about it. Imagine if she was one of those needy daughters always demanding attention. We're lucky she accepts her place. The recording continued, a full 10 minutes of my parents discussing how to minimize my presence at family events, how to discourage me from expecting anything, how to ensure James remained the sole focus of their investment and attention. This was recorded at my cousin's wedding. I explained to the growing audience. I was in the bathroom stall when they came in. They didn't know I was there, just like they never knew I was anywhere. I pulled out my laptop, showing bank statements. These are my accounts. Every penny earned by me, saved by me, invested by me. No family money, no stolen inheritance, no parental support. While James burned through nearly $500,000 of other people's money, I built this. The numbers were impressive. I've been careful with money, knowing I had only myself to rely on. My investment portfolio, retirement accounts, and savings totaled more than James had ever pretended to earn. But here's the most important thing, I continued, looking directly at the camera. Success isn't measured in dollars or parties or parental approval. It's measured in integrity, in resilience, in the strength to stand up and say enough. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. I glanced at it and smiled.
Oh, look.
My family is calling, probably to threaten me or beg me to stop. But you see, that's the thing about being forgotten, about being erased, about being told you're worthless for 32 years. Eventually, you realize that their opinion of you doesn't matter. Only your opinion of yourself matters. I declined the call and continued. James asked earlier what I contributed, why I deserve celebration. Here's my answer. I survived. I survived a family that tried to convince me I didn't matter. I survived gaslighting, emotional abuse, and systematic exclusion. I survived and thrived despite every obstacle they put in my path. And tonight, on my birthday, I gave myself the greatest gift of all, freedom. The live stream comments were pouring in. Support, shock, shared stories of similar family dynamics. The forgotten children of the world recognizing themselves in my story. To everyone watching who's been made to feel invisible in their own family, I said, raising my wine glass to the camera. You matter. Your pain is real. Their treatment of you is about their limitations, not your worth. And sometimes, the only way to heal is to burn it all down and build something new from the ashes. I ended the stream and checked Sandra's news report. The story had evolved beyond family drama. Financial investigators were involved. The FBI was interested in the interstate fraud allegations. James's company was under formal investigation. My parents' society friends were distancing themselves at record speed. But there was one more thing to do. I drove to the house I'd actually purchased 6 months ago, the one my family knew nothing about because they'd never asked about my life. It was modest but mine, every mortgage payment made from my own earnings. Inside, I'd prepared something special. A room dedicated to birthdays, not just mine but for all the forgotten children I'd connected with online over the years. Tomorrow, I'd host my first real birthday party there. Not for me, but for Sarah, whose family always forgot her birthday because it fell near Christmas. Next week would be Tommy's turn, the middle child whose siblings got celebrations while he got excuses. I'd already received dozens of messages from people wanting to join, to create a chosen family of the formerly forgotten. We'd celebrate each other, because our biological families wouldn't. We'd remember, because we knew the pain of being erased. My phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Catherine. I answered. "Alice, honey, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. The whole family is horrified by what we learned tonight. We want to make this right. Can we throw you a proper birthday party?" Better late than never. I appreciated the sentiment, but it was too late for that.
No, Aunt Catherine.
I don't need a pity party or guilt-driven gestures. What I needed was to be seen and valued for who I am, not as an afterthought when the truth comes out. I'm building my own family now, one that doesn't need scandal to remember I exist. "I understand," she said quietly. "But please know we truly didn't know. Your parents lied to all of us. We thought we were respecting your wishes." "I know," I said gently. "And I don't blame you. But I can't go backward. I spent 32 years in that family dynamic. I won't spend another minute there, even with good intentions." After we hung up, I sat in my new home, surrounded by birthday decorations for tomorrow's party. My actual birthday was almost over, but for the first time in 15 years, I'd celebrated it properly. Not with cake or presents or sung wishes, but with truth, liberation, and the promise of a future where I'd never be forgotten again. My family had given James everything and me nothing, but in doing so, they'd given me the greatest gift of all, the strength to forge my own path and the wisdom to know my own worth. I was no longer the forgotten daughter. I was Alice, 32 years old, successful, independent, and finally, blessedly, free. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the house that had once been my parents' shrine to James, now transformed into something beautiful and purposeful. The walls that had displayed his achievements now held artwork created by young adults in our program. The room where they'd planned his parties had become a communal space where forgotten birthdays were finally celebrated. "Alice, the news crew is here," Maria called from the doorway. She'd become not just my real estate agent, but a board member of the Forgotten Children Foundation I'd established. "They want to do the interview in the main gathering room." I smoothed down my simple blue dress, so different from the red one I'd worn to my last family event. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding. The reporter was kind, having followed the story since that explosive night. "It's been 6 months since the party that changed everything. How has your life transformed?" "In every way possible," I said, gesturing around the renovated space. "This house that once symbolized exclusion and favoritism is now a place where young adults escaping family neglect can find support, counseling, and community. We've helped 43 people so far, ages 18 to 35, who've dealt with similar family dynamics." "And your family?" she asked gently. "Have you had any contact?" I'd prepared for this question. "My brother James is serving 3 years for fraud and embezzlement. The investors recovered some funds, but his reputation is destroyed. My parents declared bankruptcy and moved to a small apartment in Florida. They send letters sometimes, alternating between anger and manipulation, but I don't read them anymore." "What about your sister Rachel?" That was the surprise in all of this. Rachel reached out after hitting rock bottom. She'd realized our parents had pitted us against each other, making her compete for scraps of attention by joining in their treatment of me. She's in therapy now, and we're slowly building something new. Not a sisterhood exactly, but an understanding. The reporter nodded, making notes. Your story went viral globally. The hashtag Forgotten Children Speak has been used over 2 million times. How does that feel? Humbling, I admitted. And heartbreaking. I never imagined so many people would relate to being systematically erased by their families. But it's also inspiring. We've created a network of support that didn't exist before. She gestured to the birthday calendar covering one wall, hundreds of dates marked in different colors. Tell me about the birthday project. Every person who comes through our program gets their birthday celebrated properly, some for the first time in years. We have volunteers who bake cakes, organize parties, ensure no one is forgotten anymore. It seems simple, but for someone who's been invisible, being celebrated is revolutionary. Do you celebrate your own birthday now? I smiled, remembering last month's celebration.
Ido.
My 33rd birthday was everything the previous 32 weren't. Surrounded by chosen family, people who see me and value me for exactly who I am. No comparisons, no conditions, just genuine joy in my existence. The interview continued, covering the Foundation's programs, future plans, and the ongoing legal situation with my parents' fraud. But my mind wandered to a letter I'd received that morning, one I hadn't mentioned to anyone yet. It was from my grandmother's sister, Great Aunt Elizabeth, who lived in London. She'd seen the news coverage and reached out with a revelation. My grandmother had left me more than just the education fund my parents stole. There was a separate trust, hidden from them, that Elizabeth had managed. She knew, the letter said. She saw how they treated you and planned accordingly. She'd be proud of what you've done with your freedom. After the interview, I walked through the house, checking on the residents. Sarah was in the art room, painting her feelings in bold strokes. Tommy was in the library, studying for his GED with a tutor. Marcus, who joined us just last week, was in the kitchen learning to bake his own birthday cake for the first time at age 27. Each person here had a story of neglect, of being pushed aside for a favored sibling, of birthdays forgotten and milestones ignored. But more importantly, each had a story of survival, resilience, and the courage to demand better. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Saw the interview announcement.
Proud of you.
Still working on myself, but grateful you showed me the truth, even if it hurt. I sent back a simple heart emoji. Forgiveness was a journey, not a destination, and we were both still traveling. As evening approached, I joined the group in the main room for our daily gratitude circle. It was cheesy, maybe, but it mattered. Each person shared something they were grateful for, no matter how small. I'm grateful I remembered to eat breakfast today, Sarah said, still fighting the depression that came with family rejection. I'm grateful for the birthday card from my new friend, Tommy added, holding up a handmade card from another resident. When my turn came, I looked around the circle of faces that had become my true family. I'm grateful for every forgotten birthday that led me here, because being invisible taught me to see others who were hidden. Being erased taught me the importance of making space. Being told I didn't matter taught me that everyone matters. Even James? Marcus asked, knowing my history. Even James, I said after a pause. He's facing consequences as he should. But he was shaped by the same toxic system, just from the other side. The golden child is still a victim of bad parenting, just a different kind. Later that night, alone in my own apartment, I pulled up the video from that fateful birthday 6 months ago. Not the party destruction or the family meltdown, but a quiet moment Sandra's cameraman had captured without my knowledge. Me, walking away from the house, my face serene despite the chaos behind me. You could see it in my posture, the moment I shed 32 years of trying to earn love that was never available. I'd thought that night was about revenge, but I'd been wrong. It was about revelation. Not just revealing their lies, but revealing my own truth. I was never the forgotten daughter they'd made me believe I was. I was a survivor, a truth teller, a builder of new families and new possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More forgotten children seeking help, more birthdays to celebrate, more healing to facilitate. The foundation was growing faster than we'd anticipated, and Great Aunt Elizabeth's trust would help us expand to other cities. But tonight, on this random Tuesday, 6 months after the birthday that changed everything, I raised a glass of wine to myself. To the 32 years of pain that had forged me into someone strong enough to break the cycle. To the family I'd lost and the family I'd found. To every forgotten child who would find their voice because I'd finally found mine. The revenge was sweet, but the freedom was sweeter. And the purpose I'd found in the ashes of my old life. That was the sweetest gift of all. Happy birthday to us, I whispered to all the forgotten ones. Every single day. So to everyone watching this video who's ever felt invisible in their own family, I want to ask you, what would you do if you finally had the chance to be seen? Share your story in the comments below. Have you ever been the forgotten child? Or maybe you've realized you were unknowingly participating in making someone else invisible. Let's start this conversation because healing begins when we speak our truth. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and redemption. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone, that their pain is valid, and that there's hope beyond the hurt. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and remember, you deserve to be celebrated, not just on your birthday, but every single day. Until next time, this is Alice, reminding you that sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to demand better.